Okay, we're going to resume the meeting on item 8, North Harbour Stadium and Domain Precinct. I'll thank the Deputy Mayor for running things up until now. I'd welcome Alexis, Anna, Gary and Uzra. The governing body asked you and your deputies to run a locally led process to work out the future of the North Harbour Stadium, to come back to us by the end of August to note an update on what you're doing. You've assembled an impressive group of stakeholders and done a lot of work in a short period of time. I was also pleased to see that North Harbour won their NPC game against Waikato on Saturday. Woohoo! Some of us would like them to beat Counties Manukau this weekend, but not everybody. So I'll stay out of that. Yes, well, there are supporters of both sides for next weekend's one, but over to you, team, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Your Worship. So, as you mentioned, here in the room you have myself, Anna, Chair of Upper Harbour Local Board, Uzra Kasiri-Baluch, Deputy Chair of Upper Harbour, also Alexis Popplebom, Hibiscus and Bay's Chair, and Gary Brown, who's the Deputy Chair. I'd also like to acknowledge the support of the TAU officers we have here. We've got Nick Hill, CE, and Justine, who's the Justine White, COO and Head of Finance, and also James Parkinson, Director of Stadiums. So while we're doing acknowledgements, I'd also like to acknowledge the, it's a trite quote, but the shoulders of the giants on whom we stand. We're here discussing the stadium because the previous North Shore City Council and the trustees had basically the vision to set this up in the past. So we're going to be, as the Mayor said, giving a quick update of where we've got to. And I don't want to bore everyone with the history of it again, so I'll just give a 30-second update on the history. As you'll recall, it's a 23-hectare site. So it contains a stadium, which has got a main ground and a second ground. Now, those have all amazing grasses, really, and they're played for by professionals. It's also got 5 community playing fields, which are actually really well used. There's at least 12 teams who play there on a regular basis. There's car parking and the stadium pool. So the area is actually zoned as a special purpose zone. It's a major recreation facility. So it's got some really specific planning controls about what can and can't be done there. And the actual grounds around the stadium provide over a quarter of our Winterfield playing space, and they provide nearly a half of our lit playing space. So the grounds around the stadium are incredibly well used. That's why it's called the Stadium and the Domain Precinct.
As you will rightly recall, during the long-term plan process, North Harbour Stadium became a really hot political issue and played out somewhat interestingly in the media. There was stakeholder involvement, the community, elected members, TAU, politicians as well. It became quite a hot political issue. In the Upper Harbour Local Board and Hibiscus and Bay's Local Board, as you recall in that North Harbour Stadium particular briefing session of the LTP, we were really pleased to help land that in a really solid place to help move forward in a positive direction after some months of turmoil, again, that played out interestingly in the media. So we're very happy to take the heat out of that situation and propose a very pragmatic way forward. And as you'll recall, that's led us to put together a locally led working group to progress operational management change and to work to clarify the future vision and the role of North Harbour Stadium and its precinct, including ownership, funding, governance and operational management and improvements. This is the quote of the day from Councillor Dalton, localism at its finest. So we're very pleased to be here and to share this update. And I will just like to say that since the LTP, which was voted on in mid-May, we've been working at pace with the support from our fantastic staff above and beyond their jobs to progress this work as fast as we can, because we acknowledge that there are a huge amount of stakeholders that hold this stadium very dearly to their heart, not only local boards around the northern region, but it's councillors, again, politicians, and a huge range of sporting codes as well. We worked at pace to put together our working group. We were very deliberate about who we put on that, ensuring that we had a vast array of skills and expertise to help support us. So just to name a few, we've got a range of sporting codes, of course our elected members supporting, mana whenua and a player, someone from the event space, legal, ex-trustees, some community representative, nearby business support from Westfield and the local business North Harbour. And we're very pleased to get a local Browns Bay resident who was ex-Rugby World Cup Minister and Sporting Minister Murray McCulley involved as well. We also recognise that stakeholder engagement has been really key to keep moving this forward positively. We landed it in a good place and to bring it along in a really good space. So stakeholder engagement has been really, really important, bringing the key people and organisations on this journey and building a really good rapport and following the events of the consultation. No, not everybody, all the sporting stakeholders had the same view, and it's been incredibly important to us to make sure that we're engaging really well and really early with them to bring them along on this journey. We have had 2 meetings with our working group so far, and the 3rd is coming up next month. We also engaged with Tātaki Auckland Unlimited very early. The resolutions actually in the LTP noted that we were to work with them, but as we noted very carefully to them that we would have done so very happily and positively anyway. That was always going to be part of our direction, is to bring everybody along. So we went to their July board meeting. We've had a very positive relationship with them and had weekly meetings, and they've been very supportive. We also put together a discussion document. We were told that putting a 120-page discussion document attached to your agenda was probably not good governance and probably not leading to very happy councillors. So we put a 10-page excerpt just for you to get a bit of a flavour for that. But I do understand that you were sent that as well on some requests. So we were very pleased to hear that so many people were very interested to read the full lot. So thank you. That discussion document is a living document. It'll continue to update as we progress through this work. It's a bit of a one-stop shop for information, but it provides a bit of a rationale for our planned process going forward and a program plan as well. So I'll pass on to Anna to elaborate further on that program of work going forward.
Great. So after lots of discussion with the stakeholders and with our working group and TAU as well, we've landed on a sort of a 2-stage process that's going to happen concurrently, and it's in the resolutions up there. So the first part is to lead a locally led expression of interest in conjunction with TAU to see if there's another party organisation who basically operate the stadium commencing 1st of July next year. So the aim of this stage is to turn the finances around as soon as we can to reduce the burden on the ratepayer. It's quite tight. There is a Gantt chart in the discussion document, and by the time you do all the sorting out the financials and sorting out the legals and going out for an expression of interest, we'll be really hard pressed to meet that date, but that is the game. That's the aim of the game. So we recognise that the stadium's lost quite a bit of OPEX in the last couple of years, and it needs to drive change, both in terms of new revenue and reduce costs to wash its face and deliver better for the ratepayers of Auckland. So this aim, stage 1, to get a new operational manager, we think that it's a good idea because it's someone more local rather than regional. As TAU talked about during that LTP discussion, they're really, really good at the big regional items. We've had a lot of community involvement and a lot of community input saying they want something more local. So we've also had many other groups saying, hey, we could do this or we could do that. So we really want to kind of put some science and have a locally led operator in there. As someone said to us, it's not going to be one great big thing. It's going to be 100 small changes that have to be made. So we want to drive the community use of the whole parts of the stadium. You've got the conference venue part, you've got the stadium, you've got the grandstands. So given how it has sort of been slightly run down inside for a little while, regaining the trust and the confidence of bookings is going to take some time. But we think that having a locally led responsive operator under this EOI stage will actually help on the longer term. So it will help us and it will help the governing body to gain confidence. So I just mentioned operational management there, and I just want to say that there's been some really positive changes recently, and we've actually had some really good feedback from some of the major hirers regarding TAU recently and over the last couple of years. One hire in particular noticed that their costs of holding events were down by $5,000 an event. This allows that hirer to pass that straight back to the community for the work that they do. So they really acknowledge that TAU have been sitting down, acknowledging the concerns of the hirers and aiming to address them, which is absolutely grand. But even despite those changes, we think that a locally led operator in there, working possibly alongside TAU, there's a variety of what cases as to what exactly a locally led manager will work through, but we're working through that. So that's stage one, which is to get a new operator in there by the 1st of July next year. Stage two is actually the really exciting future bit. That's actually, the timing is before the next mayoral proposal. So we don't want to be in the same position next LTP as we were this year. But actually, the possibilities are huge. So the aim of the second stage is to have a concurrent process to do a business case or something like that to work out the most appropriate ownership funding governance improvements and the operational management model for the long term. Now the timing is really tight. We want it completed by December 26. But the opportunities are really huge. It's a massive, massive site with a lot of potential. Let's turn the problem into an opportunity. So coming up, we've got ongoing discussions with TAU and the working group on exactly what the operational management change entails. As I mentioned, there's a variety of options and all have different risks and rewards and benefits. So we need to work through them. And then we're working on the EOI process, which is subject to a value for money analysis, to have the operator in place. So the ongoing learnings that the new operator discovers will actually form part of what we're planning for the future. And the reason why we want to put so much effort into this two-stage solution is it's actually a massive asset. It's hundreds of millions of dollars worth, and it's really irreplaceable. It's in the middle of a fast-growing area in terms of the last census. 3 of the 5 fastest local boards were the local boards that surround it. There was Upper Harbour, there was Hibiscus and Bays, and Rodney are 3 of the 5 fastest local boards. So to have a 23-hectare site that's already well used in the middle of that fast-growing area, it's actually irreplaceable. So we think that there's untapped community usage and commercial elements. So it needs science behind it, which is stage 2, to make sure it's done right, and we don't jump to anything too quickly. We have had people say we should do this or we should do that, but we want someone to sit back and kind of say, what's going to be best for the ratepayers of Auckland long term? What's going to be best for the community long term? So we've actually had some really great supportive staff members going above their full-time jobs and helping us. We've had our local area manager, Leslie Jenkins in particular. She's really helped us a lot. It's not sustainable going forwards. So in the resolutions, we are actually asking for continued support of TAU and the Auckland Council Chief Executive to help us progress where we've decided to go. Alexis.
If I can just summarise by saying again that we are deeply excited about the future potential that North Harbour Stadium and its precinct can offer the area. The untapped potential for it is enormous, and we are deeply committed to ensuring that it succeeds both in respect to community use, but also commercially as well. mentioned earlier that the stadium was, and the precinct was, the vision of some fantastic local people that had an incredible vision and left a fantastic legacy for us when this was horseback riding area and strawberry picking area. Now Albany is the heart of the north. And it is our job now, and we thank you for that, to continue on that legacy to ensure that that is provided, that incredible legacy is provided still into the future for our community. It is a stadium for the people, by the people, and we want to continue on with that. So I want to thank you, all of us want to thank the governing body for their resolutions that were supported back in May that gave us this piece of work, that entrusted us with this. We talk a lot about empowering local boards, and actually this is what it looks like. We have been working extremely hard. We are looking forward to that going forward. We have been bringing our stakeholders along very diligently and deliberately to push this forward into a really positive space altogether. The stadium and precinct needs a refreshed direction and strategy. It probably needed it some time ago, but we're here now, and we are very happy to lead that, and thank you again very much.
Thank you for that excellent positive presentation, and you're restoring all of our faith in local boards as well. So questions I have from Councillor Walker first.
I've got a number of questions. Good work first. Commendations. So one of the questions I've got is just semantics. You've got stage 1 and stage 2, but really they aren't stages because they're occurring at the same time, aren't they?
They are. They're
Sure.
2 stages of project plan, but yeah, it is
Okay.
completely semantics.
Yeah, sure, that's okay. What it would be useful to get a handle on, and I'm assuming you're working this through, is the matters around the current status of the stadium. So, for example, one particular issue is the demolition of the Western Stand that occurred to allow baseball, and obviously that failed. Is that going to be rectified as part of the capital plan, and is TAU going to be contributing to that? Because obviously I would have thought that was a first step.
Okay, can I take this? Through the Mayor, I'm not going to say exactly what TAU are not going to do, but we have had discussions about turning that problem into an opportunity. At first glance, you can see that hole and think, oh my goodness, it's terrible. When we talk to some promoters, they actually think that it is actually possibly useful for them. There's a road just on the other side of the demolished bank. They can drive their equipment there. They can set up their concert and everything where that was. That requires them not to have to put down turf protection. It lowers the cost of having a concert, and it enables the concert to be face on. It's like myself facing on to you rather than having the concert at the stadium at the end. So we actually think it's important to actually do the business case, do the work, think about what the stadium's going to be used for, how it's going to be used, and if that has to happen, maybe it's temporary seating, but let's not rush to anything. Let's see what it can be, because we've actually had promoters say that it's a good thing, or it could be used for food trucks. There's a number of things.
I think with that, if I can just add on with an operational manager change coming up potentially, that can give them the scope to do a very cheap solution, maybe putting some temporary boardings up for advertising whilst that's decided.
The other question I've got just goes to establishing the operational subsidy going forward. So we have a situation where all of the stadiums, Mount Smart, Western Springs, North Harbour Stadium, effectively have an operational subsidy going forward. And they also have a CapEx subsidy going forward. For example, over the last 10 years, Mount Smart has had $55 million spent on it, whereas North Harbour Stadium has been run down. It only had a couple of $1 million over the last 5 years, I think. So as part of this immediate exercise going forward around clarifying the financials, will you be arriving at a operational subsidy that is available going forward because you can't expect an operator to meet all of the costs and the like, given that we can't do that with our other stadiums. So is that going to be part of the exercise going forward?
We have the wonderful Nick Hill with us here, who might be a better place to answer your question, if that's right, Chair.
Thank you, Alexis. Just to your first question about the West Stand, we operate according to long-term plan. There's not funding in there for that. And I think the proposal here as part of stage 2 is that business case around what would you invest to get what. So I think that's properly considered there. In terms of your comment about CapEx, Mount Smart versus Albany, yes, Mount Smart has received a lot more capital than Albany. It's certainly not a couple of million. I don't have the number in front of me. I think it's at least in the last 5 years would be, I don't know, I'll be guessing, but it's certainly not a couple of million.
1.9 million, I think.
Okay, well, it depends what time frame you're looking over. And then to your third point about an operating subsidy, you're right that stadiums struggle to cover their operating costs, and that Albany in particular probably has the biggest challenge in that respect. I think and I'm speaking from a Tātaki point of view, and on behalf of the trustees, I think any proposal would need to leave the council and ratepayers in a better place than they would be otherwise. And that implies that there could be some form of subsidy, but that needs to be worked through as part of a negotiation with a different operator. But the purpose at the end of the day is that there's more value.
And certainly our aim with stage 1 and 2, noting that stage 1 will hopefully lower some operational losses, and stage 2 will progress on that further.
The other question I've got is you're going to be going in for an expression of interest process. Tautaki recently had an expression of interest process around Western Springs Stadium, for example. Often what's done first is you just have a very preliminary exercise to flush out who's interested so that you can have much earlier engagement. Is there any prospect of that? And the reason I'm asking that is this is probably not going to interest too many entities out there. So why wouldn't you flush them out? And further to that, there may well be an opportunity for collaboration. For example, you've got turf management that's relatively specialised, you've got events and the like that involve beverage and hospitality and other things. So is that a possibility?
I think that's why we specifically didn't name it a request for proposals. So that's why we've named it an expression of interest, so that it is a lighter approach to do what you're saying. So we do know that there will probably be a couple of people, certainly, that we do know who would be interested. But the expression of interest we do see as having obviously a very clear set of criteria around it, but our vision will be to have some level of flexibility and scope there that allows for that, for potential operators to come in with their own view rather than having a very set criteria in an RFP.
Having said that, can I just quickly reply to that as well? When you get an EOI coming into the premises, and what we've set up with our gut working group, there's some expertise there we can actually get a lot of information from to set up our criteria that's required for the EOI, because you don't want an EOI coming in and not knowing exactly what our objectives are and what our outcomes are required. So once we have those in place and we can work with them, we'll also get input from them to establish the exact perfect way of actually putting the system in to make it work. So you can't exactly bring an EOI in before you've got yourself settled with the foundation of where we're at, and we've got a working group that's going to be applicable to us and also help us in the long term to get it over the board. Thank you.
The other question I've got is around content. I mean, essentially, content's critical, and if it weren't content, what happens at the stadium? So, for example, if you didn't have the Warriors at Mount Smart and other things, it wouldn't be performing too well. There's the ongoing matter of Moana Pacifica and getting them to North Harbour Stadium, both in respect of their home base, which is their home base, but also playing. Is there any prospect of resolving some of these issues earlier rather than later, so that we're really lifting the game?
We have been involved a little bit in some of those discussions, but that's a very specific operational question for TAU, I think, so I will, if you don't mind, allow them to answer that.
Thank you, through you, the Mayor. We have been in ongoing discussions with Moana Pacifica. They approached us to shift their training base up to North Harbour, which we agreed with, and they've made that relocation. They have also approached us wishing to have North Harbour Stadium as their playing venue. We have agreed with that. Moana Pacifica are now going through their necessary approvals through the rugby channels, and we're awaiting their confirmation that they will be playing at North Harbour Stadium. But if what I need to emphasise is that if that does not eventuate, it is not because we have prevented it.
Can I also mention about the content, Wayne? If you talked about content, we do have a gentleman on board in our working group that does all the Blues games and all the Western Springs events, and also is an event organiser and has major events throughout New Zealand. He's on board, he has a lot of contacts, and also he can bring the content. And I think when you look at the North Harbour Stadium, we can't do the 40,000 people, but you can do the events that they don't want there because of the cost involved, but we can keep the cost down at the stadium and have those minnow concerts that they can bring in, and the people, the content to make it work. So there is that aspect that we do have, as I said, the working group has a wide range of experience to make that work in the content. Thank you.
The last question I've got is just around some clarity around 1 and 2. So as far as the stage 1 is concerned, you've got an expression of interest. Okay, great, go with that. Subject to a cost-benefit analysis and value for money for the management in the prior financial year. So I'm assuming that that's the year prior to the year when you're going to have a different operator, and that's the 24 to 25 year. Is that correct?
The prior year it refers to is the 23-24 year. That's when it's going to be compared to.
Okay, and the purpose of that, I'm assuming, and you might clarify this, is really just to get a benchmark as to the current operation and financial performance of the stadium, so that a future operator's got something to compare against. Is that pretty much the case?
Yep.
I think at the end of the day, any decision to put in some form of different operator needs to be based on improving the value. So what are you comparing that to? So
Sure.
The trustees will have to make a decision based on a case that says it's more value creating to make that change.
Okay, so just to clarify then, that's the 24 years, the year ending end of June 2024, right? Okay, and then the related question I've got, just for clarification, is around the most appropriate ownership and funding and governance and the like, and I see that extends out to December 2026. So I'm making the assumption that any future operator that comes out of the expression of interest process is going to be able to feed back into that, because I have to make the assumption that this has to work for them, and we don't know what that's like right now. So you can do a bit of crystal ball gazing, but they may come up with a whole variety of things that go to the way it's run.
Completely, and that's one of the reasons we do want the new operator in there as soon as possible, so that by 2026, in time for the long-term plan, we've got some real facts as well as some ideas of what can be done.
Thank you very much, and happy to move at a later point.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Ferry, please.
Kia ora, thank you, and just want to acknowledge in particular Anna and Alexis for their leadership in this, what's been a messy process for a while, and now you're cleaning it up, and I really appreciate that, thank you. My question, I have two questions. The first is, you mentioned before the way that this was empowering local boards and showing how local boards can work together to find solutions across boundaries. I just wonder if that part of this process is being captured, because I think it's really valuable. We have had an issue for some time where we have local boards, we have governing body, but there hasn't been a lot of acknowledgement of work that's sort of sub-regional. So I just sort of, I guess, wanted a sense from you of whether that's getting captured at all. Are local board services picking that up, perhaps? Sorry, that's one out of the box. You might have to come back on that.
I don't know if, I mean, we certainly are trying to capture that and express that to you, but maybe that is actually something that we need to think about, how we pass that through the organisation, because, you know, as I said earlier, that we talk a lot about it, but actually I don't think we've really landed kind of what that means, and as I referred to, this is almost kind of like a bit of a pilot and a bit of a study for you guys to see. But acknowledging also it's not just our local boards. We've been keeping our Rodney and Kaipatiki and Devonport Takapuna friends all are engaged with this as well.
Great, thank you.
I think also, Julie, you'll find that the by working together, the combination of the local boards working together, we have a greater resource to pull in, and that's where it's worked extremely well.
Right, cool. Looking forward to some further reflection on that, maybe something we can talk about at the Joint Governance Working Party in terms of capturing some of what's been learned to support changes throughout the organisation. And my next question is actually probably to the CEO around resourcing, particularly for stage 2 of this process. How are we going to make sure that we're supporting that? Because we need to see this through, and there's a risk there that we might stop part way, particularly if we don't have the resources.
Thank you, Councillor. I met with the chairs earlier in the week to discuss exactly this question. If we think about the two parts, the expression of interest, I think, between Tātaki's support for this, which has been fulsome and very positively received by the boards, I note, and ourselves, we can well support that. I believe we've got procurement resources and policy folk who can see it through. What the boards need to support the kind of locally led, stage 2, in the first instance, is some coordination and project management resource to complement local board services, but local board services not equipped to provide all of that. So I've agreed that we will look after the support for the boards in that regard, but I do make the point to councillors that I'm framing that as we will, because that work still needs scoped and costed, and as Chair Anna said, it needs to be gotten ready for the LTP cycle, and hence the December 26 timeframe. So I'm really comfortable that we look after that for the time being, and once we've scoped it, if there's a significant resource requirement that's not budgeted, then I will bring that back to you in December for the annual plan round.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for that. Councillor Filipana, please.
Kia ora, Chair, thank you. Kia ora koutou to everyone there. Kia ora, Nick. Look, my question is on your working group membership. Firstly, congratulations on the membership. But is there anything that will stop you from co-opting people that should be on there or put on there as you go through stage 1 and 2?
Kia ora. No, according to the terms of reference, we can co-opt people on.
Kia ora, thank you.
Good question, good answer. Councillor Henderson.
Thank you. Just a quick one, and just acknowledging you all as well. And this is a good example of local board empowerment, and it's really great to have you guys all around the table. Are we confident in the future of North Harbour Stadium that the focus won't be on just shifting existing users around the network, but actually encouraging new and ongoing users of that facility?
Yeah, I think that's what we've got to have. Economic growth only happens if you're creating something new. You're bringing people from an area that something didn't exist into a new area. We don't want to just shuffle things around. So we're confident that from what we've heard from different parties, that there is an opportunity to create new opportunities, new events, new things, not just shuffle around our professional sports.
If I can just add to that as well, that was what we've been really discussing very carefully with TAU about that question of this wouldn't be in the Stadia strategy of or their remit of having kind of competitors, but the size of the stadium and what it offers in the precinct, we don't believe would be a direct competitor to TAU-owned facilities currently.
And can I just add to that as well? I think the stadium is underutilised for community usage. We bring the communities into the fore. Some of the groups, some of the sporting groups, but also the community groups come in to use the facilities at a fee that they can afford, or else we can look at it accordingly. And that'll make a big change as well. So they become they feel actually like a membership of the stadium. I think people need to have an instinct that they need to belong to something, and if we can make the stadium that scenario, with the enjoyment of also watching bigger sports events, I think it's even better. Cheers.
Thank you. Very impressive. Thanks, Mayor.
Good question, thank you. Councillor Lee, please.
Just a question, Mr Mayor, to the Chief Executive, I guess, on a matter of detail, or rather clarity. The report is at the end of the report is the standard box of ngā kaihana, signatories, there's the author, there's the authorisers, and we have the local area manager, we have the manager, CCO, external partnerships team, the chief of staff, and the chief executive. I think for clarity and transparency, the chief of staff should be indicated as chief of staff, mayor's office. I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you, Councillor.
If I could add there, I actually think that possibly it links into what Julie was saying. This is quite odd, this is the local boards. We're presenting to the governing body on resolutions that have already passed, so it's an update. But to have Leslie as the author is a little bit unfair to her. She's been amazing. She's been given what we asked up into Info Council and changes have been made, but so many changes were made that she's not quite the author, and our names and the names of the working group who actually came up with the resolutions aren't there. So I think possibly going forward we need to kind of think about how we articulate that better, because it's not Leslie. I wouldn't want her to be in the firing line for anything. She's been great.
Fair enough. Point taken. Sure. I'd like to congratulate all of you involved, including Tātaki. I understand that there's been a positive working relationship between the two, which is jolly good. It's good to see there's no sort of knee-jerk reactions. You're taking your time and under pressure, admittedly, but thinking about things. As far as Moana Pacific, Michael Jones and BJ Williams are mates of mine, and they've kept me very closely involved in the fact that they're quite excited about it, and that's good as well. So I hope this all comes together. That's been moved by the Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Walker, I think, because you said you'd move it, but the Deputy Mayor got in ahead of you, so is that all right? So that's the questions. Councillor Watson, have you got a question? Beg your pardon? Yes, by all means. So what the normal process is now that you revert to where you sat before and we have a debate about things. So we'll have a crack at that. The opening one is from Councillor Watson, please.
Yeah, so that's a very positive news, not least of which is the potential acquisition of Moana Pacifica as a franchise. Moana Pacifica, of course, just recently pulled off one of the biggest signings in either rugby or rugby league when they got Ardie Savia, the All Black captain, and an absolute legend. And Ardie will no doubt bring others with him because, you know, he's such a magnet, and that will really just kind of lift up our whole area. I know which team, my local team, I'll be supporting now. It'll be Go Moana. I'll be the first one in the gate. So that's really good. Commendations to the steering group there of Uzra, Gary, Anna and Alexis, and also indeed to the wider working group. People might not be aware, but there are people on that wider working group with real life experience in running stadiums, both from a governance point of view and, more importantly, operationally. So we're fortunate to have that sort of expertise on tap. Now, certainly, you know, it's clear, you know, Rome can't be built in a day on this one, and it's certainly a lot harder turning things around when you're starting in a situation as we are at North Harbour. But I think just sort of one sort of qualifier I think that I'd like to put up, I think we should be aware of not overly complicating the process and certainly not needing to avoid over bureaucratising it, if there's such a word. All our stadiums, if you look back historically for the last decade, are kind of beset with a veritable plethora of lengthy and sometimes expensive reports and strategies that haven't actually manifested in too much on the ground. So I'm sure that will be avoided by the steering group and the wider working group, but it certainly is something to bear in mind. And that perhaps is best amplified by the expressions of interest process. At its most basic sense, any party or entity wanting to get into that will just really want to know what the commercial arrangements are, any legacy agreements, the asset management plan, operating costs, the consenting environment, and we're very fortunate at North Harbour, as was mentioned, that it's a sporting precinct, so that makes things very easy and straightforward from a consenting point of view. And as Councillor Walker alluded to, the operational funding, what may or may not be available there. I guess ultimately, though, we're walking towards some sort of vision or master plan, if you like it, as to what North Harbour is going to be, and that will have to be its own version that takes in its own specific characteristics. Interestingly enough, you know, we have other cities in the world, like Kansas City, for instance. They just opened up this March the first women's professional sports stadium, cashing in on the huge growth in women's sport, CPKC Stadium, and that's not entirely dissimilar to the type of capacity that's already at North Harbour. So there's international examples there of how things are worked. I guess when it's all said and done, though, if I speak on behalf of the community who have become very engaged in this process with the stadium over the last 12 months, fundamentally they're really looking for an entity, a group, or perhaps even more likely a key person, manager, who has the ability to turn the stadium around and to really just get more things happening there. There's existing tenants, as we know, and there's obviously the clear scope for others, and Moana would be a wonderful start in bolstering that offering. And I guess, when we do work on this vision or this plan, which can be pulled together rather quickly, I think, we will come up with our own model that kind of reflects the dynamics of the north, but we don't have to reinvent the wheel either. We just have to look over the bridge to what is one of the best performing stadiums in the world. If you go to the Eden Park, and some of the best managers and operators in the world too, I might add, if you look on their website at the moment, you just look at the huge array of offerings they have that are making full utilisation of their facility there. They have the Sky Sport Roof Walk, Dulux Super Bash, where you can pay to come in and hit sixes on the number one field. You have the Qatar Airways Hole-in-One. You have tours, you have stadium glamping. You have a 9-hole golf course. I'm not quite sure how they set that up. 500k up for grabs, internationally recognised. This week you have Father's Day, sold out experience at Eden Park. You have art in the park. You have the world's largest haka. You have circus coming up. Coldplay playing 3 concerts, and that's before you get to NPC rugby. And Black Caps cricket one dayers and T20s coming up. So we're not going to be doing all those things at North Harbour, but we can pick up on some of their creativity and the success of someone like Nick Sortner brings to an operation. We all know that. The people that go along to Eden Park are quite aware of that. So I'm sure in the fullness of time, we'll come up with our own vision and perhaps even live up to the very kind complimentary words that were put out by Regional Facilities Auckland itself when they took over North Harbour Stadium and referred to how it was a proud history of delivering successful events and services for north of Auckland. So RFA saw that back in the day. We've had a bit of a glip in between, but I'm sure we'll be back on track and we'll be re-energising the north with our own version of Eden Park. So thank you to everyone who's been involved in that, and we look forward to the positive progress continuing.
Thank you for that. Councillor Baker from...
Yes, I just want to comment on the local board involvement in this and just go back to the comments and some of the questions and the comment about empowering local boards. We don't empower local boards by just throwing money at them. And so this is actually allowing local boards to be leaders in their communities. And I absolutely applaud that because it is us getting out of the way and saying to them, you go, it's your community, get stuck in, find an answer. And so the pressure was on, they came to the LTP and, pleaded for us to leave the stadium alone. Obviously counties are playing there on the weekend and I probably would have said sell it before then because I'm not sure the result's going to be that flash for us. But hey, anything's in its way and we'll get karaoke by Gaza in the main field with that. But to the local boards and we talked about Leslie. Leslie is one of probably the most experienced relationship manager in Auckland Council, and she's had to deal with some pretty terrible local boards over the time, to be fair, Rodney and co, but doing a great job. But seriously, congratulations to the local board. You've picked it up. You are showing what it means to actually be empowered. So well done. And to Nick and the team at Tataki, you are not seeing this as a threat. You are willing and able and pretty keen, I imagine, to help a new operator or whatever the answer is. So great work. And and I look forward to seeing how this plays out because it is a model that can be used elsewhere. So good work and look forward to the next iteration.
Thank you, Councillor Baker. Very good points. Councillor Ferry, please.
Oh, kia ora. I think Councillor Baker largely stole what I was going to talk about, but I did just want to put a punt in there for Harbour as someone who supported that team back from the 80s when it was in the doldrums. Good to see it on the up again. No doubt we'll be back down again at some point too. What I wanted to note though, look, it's just the reality of being a North Harbour fan. There are ups and downs. So the one thing I did want to add, in addition to the points that Andy's made about local boards, is that I'm really feeling hopeful that we are now getting into a space as a governing body where we're actually going to be able to land a stadium strategy in the near future. Not necessarily the very near future, but the near future. And we have a commitment in the LTP that we're going to progress this. We have the main stadium work, which was working along. We have this work. The pieces are starting to come together. So I just want to fly the flag again for really getting that sorted, that we do need that regional strategy in this space. And I see this as a really valuable part of pulling those pieces together to land that in due course and looking forward to working on it. Kia ora.
Well said. Councillor Walker, please.
So, just like to follow on from the other speakers, I've got every confidence that this stadium will work and will be really successful. What is vitally important is to set it up for success, to make sure that we've got an excellent handle on the existing benchmarking, so we understand what sort of operational and CapEx subsidy is available, to address issues like the loss of part of the Western Stand, which is a problem for some people that are interested in that stadium. And yes, that might involve some seating, but that seating comes at a cost. And really speaking, those issues that relate to earlier problems should be rectified, and the stadium should not be lumbered with some of these historical problems. The same with the issues around bringing the statement up to standard and dealing with some of the maintenance issues that have been put off for some years. What is outstanding about this stadium is its location next to the largest park and ride in New Zealand, next to what will be the largest shopping complex, I think, or mall in New Zealand, in close proximity to State Highway 1, with special concessions or covenants that deal with noise and lighting issues that are issues at some other locations. So this stadium has got everything going for it, and I'm really hopeful that some of the issues like content, in particular that go to Moana Pacific, get resolved. And I hope that anybody that's involved in that process that's listening to this gets behind getting Moana Pacific at North Harbour Stadium, because I know Michael Jones, BJ and others are dead set on it. And it'd be great to watch them playing there on an ongoing basis, and that would really help to lift this venue quickly. Thank you very much, and I look forward to seconding this.
Well, good on you. And you can, don't worry about that. I'm right behind that. Deputy Mayor Simpson, please.
Thanks, Your Worship. Look, this is proving to be a bit of a monumental day, isn't it, really? I just want to put my voice of thanks to what I'm going to affectionately call the A-team, Anna and Alexis. Of course, ably supported by the bees behind them. But the reality is this, you know, when you put your hand up to be on the local board, you didn't really think this is what you were going to do. And I think the local boards here have really stepped up and proved that shared governance and the workload behind that is something that they can take on. So I think they are to be hugely congratulated. They're to be hugely congratulated on their leadership of putting together a very good team by both the steering group and the working group. But I just want to give you, and the third thing I'd like to say around that is around the support from Tātaki Auckland Unlimited. This started very much as a them and us, and it is now very much an us. And I think that is, from both sides, a wonderful thing to see, the support from Tātaki and the local boards working together. One of the statistics I just want to share with you was from a recent Tātaki board meeting where it looked at the event days across our stadiums. So the event days for July totalled 158, with North Harbour Stadium, the busiest, coming in at 83.25. So if there was ever evidence to prove that there is a place for North Harbour and its ability to have events, that statistic just delivers that. So again, my congratulations to the local boards, to Tātaki, and to the community that have supported them behind to get this to this good place. They have delivered exactly what we've asked them to do in a timely manner, and all power to you for the future. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Henderson and then Councillor Hills.
Thanks. Just a brief one. I wasn't going to speak, but inspired by the previous speakers. Just want to thank everyone involved and thank Tātaki as well for their support here. The model here kind of reminds me of the Trust Arena in my ward, which does a fantastic job for the community. And as part of that, as Chair Brown said, really focusing on community use as part of the picture. And I think that's really valuable for residents. I hope that, as I've said in the question, I hope the stadium can find new ways to thrive and new opportunities out there. I don't necessarily want discussions just about shuffling things around. Let's look for things that will make our city a more enjoyable place to live. And just the last thing I would say is that I'm really proud that we're taking steps toward a stadium strategy. after over a decade of work, it seems like we're actually making some progress in this term. And if we can crack this, and I really hope that we can, it will be honestly a credit to us all as city leaders, frankly. It'll be a huge accomplishment for us. And just wanted to say I'm really proud of my part in that and the part of the main stadium working party that works so hard on that limb of it as well. So yeah, really happy to kind of keep playing our part in this one, and let's keep working towards the bigger picture as well. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Hills, please.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks to the team. I was listening on YouTube on the way here from a funeral up at Snapper Rock, so right close by our stadium there. So sorry I wasn't in person for the presentations, but just want to acknowledge, first of all, Anna and Alexis. I know there's been a lot of anxiety. I know that you've been trying to be proactive and positive for right from the beginning. When I think there was some comments made at a committee early last year that kind of got everyone a bit upset. So I think there's a much more positive way forward. I think you've done a huge amount of work with members of the community, and it's looking a lot more positive. I think the other issue is that, as Councillor Henderson says, and it is about putting that mirror back on us sometimes. We have made an impossible task a lot of the time for Tātaki and previous RFA to, you know, try and run all these stadiums and tell them to make them profitable, but also tell them to make sure they have a lot of free events and cheap events and access for community organisations that we don't charge as much. And it goes around in a spiral because we can't possibly have you know, commercial viability of every stadium if we're wanting multiple financial things. So we put money in, we take money out and expect them to do everything. So that will be a task for a new operator or a potential new operator as well. How do you get that mix? How do you make sure it washes its face but also ensures you get that good community access? So that will be tricky, but I think this is a really good way forward, and it will help on that overall stadium strategy, because what we heard very strongly from North Shore residents, but also other parts of the city, that they really want this stadium for the future in our community, and we just have to work out how to make sure that happens. So once again, congrats to Anna and Alexis, the local boards and those involved. It is a really positive way forward, and working with Tātaki and working with other players, I think it will mean a really good positive place for the future. Thanks.
Thank you for that. Okay, summing up, it's all very positive. You realise we've just spent quite a while talking about a nice to have. I don't know if we've upset the government with that, but I think it's quite a good thing to have, actually, as well as being nice to have. And I was pleased to hear you talking about perhaps adjusting the price to operate towards what the people can afford for what it is that they're going to do in there. All right, all those in favour, please say aye. Anyone of the contrary? No, nobody said that, so it's carried. I'm going to adjourn until 1:30 for a period of lunch. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.